last paper of the conference, last paper of this session, and also last paper of the conference is by Sushant Bharti ji about Sthapatya.
First of all, thanks to Indic Academy for organizing such a beautiful conference, and to Nagaraj sir. I mean, I think I was maybe the last one to send the paper to him, or maybe something, because it took me a long time to decide the topic. So I will not take much time. I will proceed further. My topic is basically, it's not, actually I was, when I was doing my conservation from my School of Planning and Architecture, Masters from SPA. At that point of time, one of my faculty asked me this question that, because she was referring me to a manual by Sir John Marshall, who happened to be the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India when Lord Curzon was the Viceroy. It was around 1900s, early 1900s. And she asked me that, do we have any such of any sort of manuals in Indian context? I mean, so I was like, at that point of time, I was not able to answer her. But slowly, with the time, I tried and searched for a lot of things, and there were many texts. But Agni Puran was something, I mean, which gave me some sort of satisfying answers. But apart from that, there was a lot of architectural, I mean, in terms of the temple architecture, specifically in the North Indian aspect, which was mentioned in Agni Purana, along with the iconographical aspect. So I will be throwing some of the light which is mentioned in the Agni Puran and in the reference to temple architecture, its planning, choice of the place, and various other attributes related to temple architecture. So as everyone has talked about in this conference about various topics, what is being, is covered in Agni Puran. So I will not go into that, and I will be only focusing on the design and architecture part, which is mentioned in Agni Puran in a very elaborate manner. So the significance of temple construction. So Agni Puran lays a very significant construction on the temples. It says that if one wishes, I mean, if just one wishes to construct a temple, I mean, leave about actually constructing a one. If we just take a sankalp of building a temple along with the reservoir, it destroys the sense of thousand birds. And even they have said in Agni Puran that building a temple is equal to doing a pilgrimage. So now you can understand that why we see a lot of this correlation between the water bodies, the pilgrimage, the temple constructions in all these cities. So, and it is said that if out of misfortune, if he is not able to have that capability of building that temple with stones or maybe the precious stones, if he just construct a temple with the even soil, then also he's entitled to have the swarga. I mean, as per the Agni Puran thing. So there is a long range of bibliography which is mentioned in the part of Sthapatya, which is mentioned in Agni Puran, and it is being dictated by Lord Haigriva to Agni Puran, and you can see there are very texts like Hayashish Tantra, Trailokya Mohan Tantra, Vaibhav Tantra, Pushkar Tantra, Prahlad Tantra, Nardiya Tantra, Shandilya Tantra, Ishvara Tantra. Though I am not been able to look through all of them, but hardly, I mean, I've been able to go through, I mean, like 20%, 30% of the text, and they give a very general idea about the temple architecture. I mean, not much in detail, and it's more about, some texts only talk about the Dravid temple architecture, some only talk about the Nagar architecture, and there are some who actually touches a bit of Kalinga Nagar Shaili too. So there is a mix of thing, but the main whole idea is the temple architecture in some way or another has been addressed in all these texts. So the first part is the location of temple. So according to the Agni Puran, it says that the deity, I mean, which is there in the Garbhagriha, should always face the city. And in your right, you can see there is a plan of Shirangam, if you can see very well. Here, if you can see my cursor, it's the two tributaries of river Kaveri. And you can see very well how the evolution of town has happened with the time. I mean, I'm not talking about the Sapta Prakars, which are there around the 7 enclosure of the city. But if you just see, that how this main stretch which goes till the Kaveri, where they bring the water daily for the Ranganath, and you can see how the city has evolved with the thing with the time. And as everyone knows, that the Ranganath is facing south. This is the southern direction on which the Srirangam city has evolved. And it also says that you have to bring that, as I said earlier, that shrines which are the pilgrim places which are adjacent to water bodies are the most auspicious places for the construction. So you can see how, I mean, you can imagine that why so many temples are plunged up in cities like Kashi, Mathura, or Pushkar, or maybe Pandharpur, and many other places. And there are some specification for some temples, like the Brahma temple should be in the center of the city, Indra should be in east, Agni, Dev and Matrika should be in southwest, Bhutagana and Yama should be in south. Though I have never ever seen any independent temple of three. Yes, I would like to tell about the Brahma temple in Pushkar. Though when I was reading this test, I got back to Google Earth and just Google Earth for the Brahma temple. So this is not in the center of the city, I mean. And but yes, if you see the temple as a structure, so you will find this all four deities located on the same niche, temple niche, on the same direction which is mentioned over here in the slide. Yes, location of a temple again. So it says that you should have to worship Vastu deity, and and one should establish a deity suited to his interest. So we have seen that in the times in various dynasties, if we see that the kings used to, when they used to get into some sort of sect or some sort of religion, they used to propagate the same sort of temple construction activities during a time period. For example, if we see the Gupta time period, we will see a lot of suddenly a Vishnu temples coming up in the picture. And in Gujar Pratiharas, we have a long, series of Shiva temples and Vishnu temples coming up. For Hoysala dynasty, the time when Ramanujacharya, before the Ramanujacharya comes to Mandya Desha, before that Hoysalas are only constructing the Jaina basadis. But as soon as Ramanujacharya comes to the Mandya Desha, suddenly we have Vishnu temples coming up in the picture. So you can understand that why such things are happening. It's a part of psychology, and also what the text is saying to them. And it is said that a temple should always be constructed at the intersection of city and the village. It should not be away from the habitation. And this is why the reason that why we don't see any of the temples left in the northern part of the country, because they were in the center part of the city. And when the foreign invasion and the Islamic invasion took place, they were the first to be attacked, and that's the reason, I mean, we don't have much temples left. And the most important part is the angle direction should not be allowed in a temple, and where the expenditure is very, very high. We should never ever build a temple on this spot. I mean, the temple which you can see on my picture is the Vrindavan Chandrodaya Mandir, which is coming by ISKCON on the floodplains of River Yamuna, and a lot of NGT problem is coming to this temple. And I don't know whether they have read this particular shloka in Agni Purana or not. If they have read, they should have not done they should have not been planned this temple at this spot. So there are various type of plans mentioned, like the Kayatan temple. So this is the most famous temple number 17 in located in Sanchi complex. That's a Gupta period temples, and it is considered to be one of the earliest tangible evidence of a full-fledged temple, where you can see a Garbhagriha with a flanked roof and 4 columns. Here you can also see, I mean, I am not shown the picture of elevation, but if anyone can Google and see the picture of this temple, you will see that there are some Greco-Roman effect on the columns, but it is a full-fledged temple. Though we don't know it was a Hindu temple or a Buddhist temple, because we have a lot of mix of culture at the Sanji, but it's considered to be one of the full-fledged temple in terms of archaeological and the historical studies. So Triyatan temples. So this sort of temple, as I was telling you, that when Ramanujacharya came to Mandya Desh, when the atrocities were happening by the Chola kings in the Tamil region, Chola region. So when he came here, then this Yatan type, like Triratna type temple typology came in the context of the Hoysala architecture. There's the famous Channakeshwar temple where you can see, and there are various other temples which you will see in if you study the Hoysala area and the area around Channakeshwar, Halebedu, Belur, and other parts of the Mandya Nadu. So the Panchayatan temple, this is the famous the Dashavatar temple at Devgarh, which is where a lot of people I would have seen the famous reclining Vishnu with the 5 of his attributes fighting below him and on the Sheshnag. And there is a very famous also panel of Naranarayan and Gajagraha Yuddha. So this is the temple located in Uttar Pradesh, and this site is considered to be one of the most important place where you will see the most intricate and most beautiful pieces of specimens of Gupta era architecture and art. And this is one of the Panchayatan temple because it had some flanked roof, and these 4 actually flanked roofs also happen to be a temple in its existence. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is like and if you see the planning of this temple, it is also known as Sarvato Bhadra temple because it is equal from all the sides. So this is the opening of the temple, and if anyone have visited the Devgarh site, so just in front of this temple over here, you have a Vishnu Dhwaja. I mean, the Vishnu Dhwaja or the Sambha is not there, but the base is still, is visible. You can just imagine that how the temple would have been. So one more thing I would like to add about Agni Puran, it's basically talks more about the Vaishnava aspect in temple art and architecture as I went through. So if you, in the course of my presentation, you will see that particular aspect, that it is more revolving around the Vaishnava or the Vishnu as a main deity in terms of art and architecture and the planning. So this is the very famous, the Kailashnath temple of Verul. It is a Shadayatan temple. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6. These are the 6, this is the main center sanctorum, the Garbhagriha, and the 5, attached center sanctorum along with the thing. So this is one of the, I think this is the only existing example of Shadayatan temple I have seen in India. I don't know about any other which existed or maybe have destroyed with the time. And there are many more other temples mentioned like Dwadashatayatan, like 12 12 chambers, even 16 chambers. I don't know that whether these were in the Bhava Pradesh imagined by the author of the Agni Puran, because my idea of doing this particular part from Agni Purana was to see that what the text is talking is actually existing on the ground or not. So so I'm only sharing those parts which I have been able to find in terms of temple architecture and my own personal capacity. Then the design of a temple, it says that height of Shikara should be twice the height of the wall, and it is very much near about that. If you see a temple, you will see that the height of Shikara is twice the height of a wall, which is also known as the coast of the wall, the coast of the temple thing. And the 1/4 height of the Shikara should be the circumambulation width, of the temple. So they have 2 types of temple plans. One is Sandhar, one is Nirandhar. Sandhar, in which the circumambulation part is included in the temple wall itself. This is a Sandhar plan. And one is Nirandhar, in which the circumambulation is not path is not given inside a temple, but it's outside the temple. So we have both the examples of temples available in this country. So if you go to the area of Patadakkal, which is the main, the center of a temple of the art and architecture by the Chalukyas, Badami Chalukyas, you will find a lot of Sandhar plans over there. So, and according to that, it also says the gate should be made in both lateral section of temples, like it should be more from this side and this side. It should be axial, north, south, west, everywhere. It should be there. And it also says that there should be pillars of extension. The Sabha Mandap should be there, in the front of the temple. And it says that the measurement of the Garbhagriha should be same like the Sabha Mandap and Jagamohana. Though this is somewhat nearby to what the Agni Purana is saying, but you will not find the same thing, in the later series. If you see the evolution of temple architecture, in early temples, you might see this particular line to be implemented in the temple architecture and design. But further, when you see the temples from 10th century onwards, from Gojar Pratihara and other dynasties, you will not find this thing, to be there. They evolve with the time. So we have been very liberal with what the text has been saying. So we have there have been cases where we have picked some points and we have proceeded with what the site and the context has is saying to to have that in place at that point of time. So and now I'm coming to the elevation part. It says that from this particular shikhar is actually is known as Bhumija Shekhar in terms of temple Nagar temple architecture, and it says that if you drop a yarn diagonally on the top of Shukanasa to the shikhar, you will have the shikhar. You will have to you should have placed an idol of lion over there. So this is the only existing example in terms of Nagar architecture what I have been what I have discovered, because this is one of the earliest specimen of Bhumija Shaili, Nagar Shaili. And in next slide I will show you how the Bhumij architecture is evolved, and there you will find this lion has disappeared. So this particular temple actually dates back to 10th 11th century during it was built during the Chauhan dynasty. It is located in Menal, which is nearby the Bhilwara, Rajasthan part. It also says that that above Shukanasha, obviously a kalasha and amalaka should be placed, which is still evident, which was still evident with the time. If you go in the 14, 15, in the 10 to 12th century in the temple architecture, and it also says that it should not be made huge. So behind this, the idea is that if you make that huge, there is an idea of that the kalash might get collapsed with the wind movement. So it has kept very it has to be kept apt and appropriate according to the scale and the proportion of the temple. So this is one of the elaborate and one of the most beautiful example of Bhumija temple architecture, which was built during the Parmara period. And it is located in Madhya Pradesh, which is known as Udayeshwara temple. And here you can see the evolution of Bhumija architecture, and suddenly Shukanasika is there, but the lion has disappeared. Maybe, as far as I have seen the archaeological reports, we don't find a specimen of that lion has been got withered away with the time. So it only say that there is nothing over here, but Ashokanasika is still present. And you can see how the elaborate the temple is, and this temple is still functional in Madhya Pradesh. And it is also located in the center of this of the village of Udayeshwara, which is north to Bhopal actually. So again, you can see that same lion coming in the Kalinga Nagara architecture. Here the Shukanasika has disappeared, it has recessed inside the temple, but you can see that the lion, and which is approximately at the half of the the Shikhara, it is located. And here one more important part is the lions actually come all around the Kalinga Nagara architecture, because if you see the history, lions have been a very important part of the Kalinga culture and the art. So that's how you can see. But still, this particular part which has been mentioned in Agni Purana is still present over there in the Kalinga Nagara architecture. This is the famous Lingaraj temple of Bhubaneswar. And then about the gates, the Dwara Toran, it says that should be very beautiful with two branches of sycamore coming along, and with the various Mangal objects to be placed over there. It talks about the four Dwarapala, Chanda, Prachanda, Vikshukshena, Vatsadanda should be constructed on the gate. And it says that Sri Vigraha of Lakshmi should be mentioned in the center part of the, the Dwara Toran. Though I have never ever seen Sri Lakshmi to be centered on the Dwara Toran. In Vishnu temples, you will see the Garuda to be placed with the flanked wings, and he carries the Mukuta of Vishnu on his head, denoting that he is there in the service. And but I have never ever seen Lakshmi over there. This particular image which I am sharing is actually from the famous Sanchi Stupa. But what the description is giving in Agni Puran, that it shows that it should be seated on the lotus with the two giant elephants showing her bathing. So as we know that Sanchi Stupa has both the, it was built during the course of time. The original structure was built during the Mauryan time period with by Ashok. But we also know with the archaeological studies, historical studies, the Shungas also incorporated a lot of things in the Sanchi Stupa. So my theory is that maybe this particular panel, which is there in one of the gateways Sanchi, may have come in during the time period of Shunga dynasty, because we see a lot of Brahminical activities started during that point of time. And I have never ever seen this particular panel in any of the Dwar Toran. I mean, till now, if any of the participants could tell me, I mean, I'd be very, very grateful to them. And then now it is iconography. It says it's very, very important. I mean, it says that even more than building a temple, Agni Purana lays more virtue. I mean, one who builds the idol of the deity, the Vigraha. It says that it should be of the wood statue is the best. I mean, it says so. Maybe it is maybe that's why we don't find a lot of temples to be empty. Maybe they would have been housed with a wooden deity which have weathered with the time. And the only existing example of the wooden deity which is very famous is the Lord Jagannath, and he's also, you know, the deity is changed when the with the this activity of Navakalevar after every time when we have the Adhik Mas in Ashad. So maybe this can be one of the possibilities is why we don't find a lot of wooden a lot of temple to be empty without any signs of you know, destruction in the, especially in the North and the West Indian context. And then it also puts a lot of light on the construction of an idol. I mean, it says that the larger the statue, the bigger the beautiful will be the pindi. That the larger will be the statue. The deity should be the 5 hands, height of the 5 hands. Then the pedestal should be 1 hand, and it says that half the value of pindi. I mean, the stone block. I mean, it should be with the value of Garbhagriha itself. I mean, it should not be somewhat away. I mean, on a different scale of what and how the Garbhagriha has been, I mean, constructed. And the height of idol should be kept according to the length of wall. I mean, it's very, you know, logical. I mean, you cannot go without the proportion of the temples, and you can build an idol. I mean, which cannot be housed inside the, you know, the Garbhagriha. Then it talks about a lot of location of the vigrahas around the niches of the temples. I mean, along the temple walls. So this particular thing I have seen in a lot of Vishnu temples, specifically in the Kalingan aspect. I mean, this particular thing you will see very well in if you visit Jagannath temple. So I mean, yes, I have seen Haigriva, Vasudev, Vara, Parshuram, Narasimha. I don't know about Sridhar, but and Ram, but Vaman. Yes, all these trees I have seen, and in the around the temple niche of the Jagannath temple. So we can also, I mean, what I have during my course when I was studying, I saw that a lot of things which Agni Purana actually says has, you know, it's still existing around 60-70% part of the Agni Purana is still existing in the Kaling aspect, in the Odishan aspect. So maybe we can, you know, we can assume that maybe a lot of the part which has been mentioned in the Agni Purana would have been written over there, maybe would have traveled very well with the time over there, with the invasions or anything happening in the northern part of the country. The most important part, the conservation of temple. So it lays a very, very importance on the conservation of restoration and reconstruction of temple. It says the person who renovates the temple, which has fallen, which is falling, or which has fallen half, receives a double fortune instead of building a new temple. And the man who rebuilds the fallen temple protects the fallen temple. He receives the highest virtue. So, I mean, though we are building a lot of new temples in the country, I mean, the Ramajanam Bhumi construction is happening, that has to be happen. But apart from that, a lot of, you know, the temples are lying in a dilapidated condition. And as I'm right now seeing that Jaggi Vasudeva is starting a new movement to take the temples of Tamil Nadu. It's a very good, but we have a lot of such bodies already doing such works like the Manjunatha, in a lot of temples. The Manjunatha temple trust is also doing the Jeeronodhar of the temples. Though they are very selective in doing the temples, they only do the Jaina Basatis, they hardly take the Hindu temple. But still, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's about to complete, sir. 2-3 slides, sir.
Actually, it is very difficult to stop at this point because it's such a great paper, such a great contribution. We are so lucky to have you all for this conference, but no time is.
Yes, sir. 2-3 minutes or more, sir. I'm just ending. I think it's second last slide, sir. Yes, sir. So this is the very famous news you would have seen in current days that Chennai famous Vishnu idol was found nearby the riverbed. So why nearby a riverbed or water body you will find every time a idol? Because Agni Puran says that when idol, it gets, when venerated or gets limbless or old, you are not supposed to renovate that same idol. What you have to do, you have to carry that idol on a procession with musical instruments, and you have to bury that particular idol either nearby a water body, or should put inside a water body. So with the time, if any of the archaeological activities, I mean, if more archaeological activities happen in the country nearby water bodies of temple tank, you will find more idols like this, I mean, to be excavated over there. So now its conclusion, I mean, the only conclusion is that yes, what I have been able to do, I mean, it's a very small part. We have to look into more correlations of the Agni Puran with the various other texts, and we have to see that how more cross connections are there in Agni Puran in various regional dimensions, and various maybe there will be some other regional texts which would have been inspired from Agni Puran, and would have been incorporated in the regional architecture. So the thing is that we might have to move a much step further from this to study all those texts, so that the students who are in the architecture studying in India should know more about it, what actually we possess, and they should not face the same situation what actually I faced during my masters, when my faculty asked that do we have anything in the Indian context. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Actually, that was a really, really nutritious paper. It was providing. Yours is not just Agni Purana research. Based on Agni Purana, you have researched the actual structures where the Agni Purana Sthapatya is actually seen. So that is really very, very helpful for any researcher in this area. And actually, let me, in conclusion of the whole conference, let me tell you that all the papers in this conference, almost all of them, except one or two, have been very, very well written, well researched, well substantiated, well presented, uh, well in time, well disciplined, well organized papers. This has been one of the richest conferences I have seen, I should say. And there were conferences when we had to tell the paper presenters, uh, that they should know how to present papers, how not to beat around the bush, give unnecessary long introductions, and all that. But this time, every paper was as if it was very well planned. And thank you very much. Thanks to all the paper presenters of yesterday and today. Let me thank Shri Vivek Dev Roy, great economist and economics advisor to the Prime Minister, and a great scholar of our traditions, particularly Puranas. Everyone who heard him yesterday acknowledges that they were enriched by his extraordinarily eloquent and erudite talk as a keynote address for this conference. I thank him, and I thank all the paper presenters of yesterday and today. And I thank all the registrants, all the participants who made this program such a grand success, who are ready to take the message from this conference wide and long. And I particularly thank our Indic Academy's executive officers, Sri Srinivas ji and Sri Koti Garu, who have been uh, the force behind the success of this conference. I think all the panelists would agree uh, from their experience that it is but for them and their hard work behind organizing this conference, the conference would not have been such a great success. And I thank our founder, Sri Harikiran Garu, for being an encouragement behind all these conferences and the source of inspiration let me share with you that these ideas come from him. He is the innovator, he is the idea giver, he is the executioner, and he is the source of every kind of success of these conferences. Let me thank him. And I thank all the Indic Academy family members. And I thank all the social media organizers and those influencers who have carried the message of this conference far and wide. And thank you all.